Hello and welcome to Frank's School. Today I'm going to show you video clips, extensive ones, quite long, of a place called Santa Trega. I didn't really know, or we didn't really know anything about it before we went there. It's gorgeous. I mean, it's a tourist destination, and it should be. For one thing, it's easy to get to. We did know about the Castro di Santa Trega. The Castro, that word means camp, and it's in such words as Lancaster, Winchester. When it becomes Chester, when the Romans had a camp in England, it was called a castrum, I think, and then that became the city of Lancaster, and then also here in Pennsylvania. So anyway, Castro means camp. But in this case, it's not a Roman camp, it's a Celtic camp. And we knew about that. That's one of the reasons we stayed in Aguarda. The main reason was Ufalon and Upicon. But I think it was Shirley that found out, that from studying, said, oh, there's a Celtic camp there, let's look at that. And I'm very glad we did. But anyway, I'll save that for tomorrow. We drove up. And another thing, at the beginning of this, you'll get an idea of our lodging. Our lodging, it would send shivers down. What's his name? Rick Steve's back, if he had any idea of the places we stayed, because we were traveling cheaply. We were staying in hostels, and sometimes, just because it was the off season, we lucked out and Shirley found these very nice places. Well, this was right on the beach. You know, in the summer you could swim right there, but it was pretty run down. So you'll see a little bit of that. But anyway, she had found that and wanted to be on the ocean some. The weather, it was just too cold and too windy to do much with the water. But anyway, we're like tourists. We drive up to this tourist site. Up to the top of this mountain, and it's a pretty dramatic drive up there. It was a little scary, to be honest with you. Shirley is not fond of heights, and she drove up bravely and then back down bravely. You'll see some of that. I mean, it was safe because there were granite guardrails, sort of, but you know, when you're looking out the window and you see what you ought to see out of an airplane, that's a little scary. That mountain is visible from Folon. If you look back at those videos at some point and you look at the view in the distance, you can see this pointed mountain, small mountain. That's where we were. Now it was Monday, it was off season, and it was very early. And because of this, it was deserted. We lucked into that several times. I mean, we had the place to ourselves. There were no other tourists there yet at all. And one other thing I guess I'll say is that I noticed there these walls were round. In among see, up at the top there's this church and sanctuary, monastery, I guess, up on top of the mountain. And that's all built out of sort of what you'd think of as real nice medieval or stonework with square corners. But in among it, there were some round walls. And that's because on the same site there had been huts, part of the Castro, which mostly you see down below, but there were other places on that hilltop that had them. Well, those round walls, you know, back in Folon, when I got to the bottom of Folon, at one point I said, I'd like to know why that wall is round, because everything else had either been terraced or square. And I suspect that there was a Castro there. I could look at it because at one point they show a map of where all the Castros were in that area, and that would be such a logical place to have a Castro. So I suspect back there in Folon, I was looking at the remains of a Castro. Just a theory. One other thing, iron tools. All the Celtic work seems to be rounded. And And I think a reason for that is if you don't have, I don't think the Celts at that point had iron. I don't think, because I think that was a Roman thing. And if you don't have iron chisels, it's a lot harder to cut stone. And but with the iron tools, you could then make those square corners that you see so much as they cut that granite. All right, well, it's quite long. I think it's 15 minutes long up there on the top of Santa Trega. But, you know, this is for study. This was not simply done as a wonderful thing to look at for the fun of it and dream that you're a tourist. It's way beyond that. I mean, I filmed details. And that way I can look at it later and think about what exactly was I looking at. All right, I'll have just a little bit. Tomorrow we'll be looking at this, and I'll have a little bit more to say about these round walls and these buildings. But I think the Celtic ones. But I'll save that for tomorrow. See you then.